achieved.
One of the ongoing debates we always hear in mixed martial arts is either who's the best pound-for-pound active fighter or obviously the greatest of all time, the GOAT. And I'm of the opinion that Georges St-Pierre took a massive step in the direction of being considered the greatest of all time, if he already isn't. As far as I'm concerned, he is. Doing what he did as the welterweight champion, long-reigning welterweight champion, for as long as he did was damn impressive. But to return after 4 years and to capture the middleweight title belt in a fight against Michael Bisping, a long-established veteran fighter, that's damn impressive. Is he done? Can he do more? Absolutely. Fighting and defending the title against a guy like Robert Whittaker would be a massive accomplishment for him. There's other guys like Chris Weidman, Luke Rockhold, Derek Brunson, Yoel Romero, Jacare Souza. All those guys are all lined up for a shot at the middleweight title, depending on how things play out over the next months and years. It'll be very interesting to see what Georges St-Pierre is capable of doing, who he's capable of beating. Either way, it's added a lot of intrigue. The excitement level around that card was fantastic. And watching not one, not two, but three champions fall, three championship belts change hands was an awesome experience. Even when I did as poorly as I did that night, going 4-7, only getting Georges St-Pierre's victory correct out of the final three fights, it was something else. See Rose win the title was awesome. See TJ pull off that upset in a back-and-forth fight was fantastic as well. I want to see a rematch of that bout. I don't care what TJ thinks. I think they need to go again. But at the same time, I would love to see TJ Dillashaw take on Demetrius Johnson. And that's the one individual, as long as John Bones Jones stays out, is not active, Demetrius Johnson is the individual who can challenge George for greatest of all time, because I think he can go up and fight for the 135-pound belt and potentially win it. I think that'd be a very cool head-to-head matchup I'd like to see in the not-too-distant future. Last time I spoke to you, I was hoping to update you on doing some jiu-jitsu. I did go to a second practice. It was definitely harder than the first one. Did a lot more stuff. Well, a lot more stuff in quotations for me. Did a little bit of guard passing. Did a lot of movement things as well, but a little bit of guard passing. It was good. I enjoyed it. Unfortunately, I don't know, just with my schedule and everything that's coming up and having so many things on my plate, I hope to continue going once a week. That probably isn't going to be the case. We'll have to see how it plays over the next coming weeks, but it is what it is. Schedules can be difficult, and commitment level, it's just not quite there for me. So as much as I enjoyed it, we'll have to see how things play out. That's my computer. And on that note, welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. Always, I am your host, Scott Johnson. And on this episode of the show, we are breaking down the upcoming UFC Fight Night 120 event, which will take place in Norfolk, Virginia, featuring not one, not two, 6 actually main card fights, which I'll be giving my predictions for in this episode of the show. All of my preliminary picks will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. As per usual, you can pick up my bet packs for $15 a pop. Last show's was absolutely hot trash. Not much I can do about it now. We'll have to move on. Hopefully this show will do much better. The bet packs are also available in subscription form for the last 8 shows of the year, and I think you're saving roughly $30 to $40. So you're basically, if you subscribe, you're getting 2, almost 3 shows for free. So certainly check that out. As always, I thank all of my subscribers and people who follow and tune in. I greatly appreciate all of you, and the efforts I put forth are specifically, for your entertainment. I also, on one somber note, yesterday was a very unfortunate day in the baseball world, and just generally the world in general. Yes. But Roy Halladay, former Toronto Blue Jay ace, Philadelphia Phillies pitcher as well, passing away in a very unfortunate single-person plane crash, which, it shows you how short life is and how quickly things can be taken away from you and taken away from those you love if, by walking out the door, I guess. And on that note, let's get to the main card predictions. And I should note I've changed up, you probably might not be able to notice it, but just my approach to these predictions, I've changed up the way I'm doing it a little bit and see if we can maybe jumpstart some stuff. It's crazy. I have shows where I go 4-7, then I have shows where I go 9-1, and they're very close together. And it's just how things shake out. But we'll see if this change maybe facilitates some more success. Our opening fight of the night takes place in the UFC's lightweight division, featuring a pair of longtime UFC veterans, as Joe Lauzon, 27 wins, 14 losses, takes on the Carpenter Clay Guida with a current record of 33 wins and 14 defeats. Now, as I said, these are 2 long-serving UFC veteran fighters. It's crazy they haven't fought yet at this stage of their career. Both of them debuted all the way back in 2006, so 11, almost 12 years of service for inside the octagon, and they've yet to come to blows. That will change this Saturday. Both men have come close to getting shots at the title. or at least being in the conversation, but have never been able to really put it together to the point where, hey, here's your opportunity, you're fighting for the belt. Lauzon comes into this bout having alternated wins and losses over his last 8 fights. He's coming off a loss to Stevie Ray. I predicted Joe Lauzon to win that fight. He nearly finished him in the opening round, gassed out, and was defeated. Clay Guida returned to lightweight in his last fight and lost an upset fight to Eric Koch. I had Koch in that matchup. Guida had lost 3 of his 4 previous bouts, all taking place at featherweight. Physically, Lauzon 3 inches taller, have a 1-inch reach advantage, and he's the younger fighter by 3 years. Now, looking first at Clay Guida, his cardio has been a massive weapon over his career, where it's very well established. His cardio and his erratic movement as well, which is allowed to come into existence because of his cardio. His cardio has been a massive weapon for him. It allows him to keep attacking on the feet, on the mat, and pushing fighters till they break. Conversely, Joe Lauzon has had major cardio issues. He slowed down versus Stevie Ray after nearly finishing him. He's been outworked over 3 rounds simply because he can't keep up to his opponent's push and pace, and that's something, those are 2 puzzle pieces here I'm looking at when I'm breaking down this fight. The other big question, though, is Clay Guida's durability. He has had a career of wars where he's absolutely beaten up guys and got beaten up by guys and just gone to battle every single round. And it seems like it's catching up with him. He's been finished in 4 straight losses and 5 of his last 7 defeats, 9 times by submission overall. And Lauzon, he will brawl. He's dangerous on the feet. He's dangerous on the mat. He knows how to finish. Even if given the scenario, he knows how to put guys away. You saw him stop Diego Sanchez by hurting him on the feet and taking him out. Remember Melvin Gillard back in the day? He dropped him and submitted him. Very impressive. But Lauzon's also had issues with opponents that can take him down and keep him there, which is an area of strength for Clay. So it's like back and forth, tit for tat, if you will, as to where the edge lies with these individuals. Guida's striking has looked much improved since moving to Team Alpha Male. He looked very good against Eric Koch. He probably was beating Brian Ortega before getting finished in the later stages of that fight. So he's definitely shown some improvements and maybe a little bit of rejuvenation going over to that camp. Guida tends to throw a little bit wild with his strikes, a little bit wide when he's throwing his offense. It opens him up to counters down the middle. Joe will attack with longer strikes, straighter punches, and that gives him the opportunity to hurt Clay if he can catch him with his movement and speed coming in. Lauzon needs to be mindful of going for the finish early if it presents himself, or simply overexerting himself trying to track Guida down and trying to close the gap and find some offense. That's something he has to be very careful of. If the submission is there for Joe Lauzon, he's going to get it. If he can hurt Clay and knock him down, or score a prolonged takedown, or attack off a prolonged takedown attempt, it's going to be there for him to pick up the submission. Guida's still a tough out, despite the fact his durability isn't what it used to be. And he fights to grind, and it's very effective against certain fighters. And I think his takedowns and his grinding ability against the cage and simply his ability to outwork Joe is going to be his key to success here. Guida's movement is going to make it very difficult for Lauzon to land, and that wrestling and activity rate for Guida is going to make it difficult for Joe to continue to put up a solid resistance over rounds 2 and 3 if Guida can get to that opening round. Joe's going to start to tire after round 1. It's making that finish that he needs to get less likely. His offensive output will drop off, and my prediction is Clay Guida to defeat Joe Lauzon by decision. Fight number 2 in the main card takes place in the UFC's bantamweight division as the 4th-ranked Brazilian Raphael Assuncao, 25 wins and 5 losses, takes on the 13th-ranked Matthew Lopez, currently coming with a record that is undisclosed based on the UFC website. Did not notice that. Let's go and take a quick endeavor into finding what Lopez's record is. It's pretty solid. I believe he's 2-1 in the UFC, but we'll wait till it pops up here. And he currently sits with a record of 10 wins and a single defeat. Now, Lopez is coming off back-to-back wins over Mitch Gagnon and Johnny Eduardo. He had a debut loss to Hani Yahya, an upset I correctly predicted, which I was very happy about. For Assuncao, he has beat Aljamain Sterling and Marlon Moraes in back-to-back fights. That's 2 solid prospects he has turned back, both by split decisions. So that's worth noting. His only loss in his last 10 fights came to TJ Dillashaw, the current champion again. And, he's 1-1 in that 10-fight stretch against Dillashaw. So it shows you how impressive and how much he's accomplished over his last little while. Physically, Lopez 2 inches taller, over 3-inch reach advantage, and he is 5 years younger than the Brazilian. Now, this is a massive step up in competition for Lopez. For Assuncao, he's taking a bit of a step back. Yes, Lopez is ranked, but he doesn't have a lot of name value. And if he loses this fight, that's a big loss. Lopez knows in this matchup, if he throws himself into the fight and wins the fight, that immediately puts him into the upper echelon of competition and gets him some big fights coming up. It's a huge opportunity. For Assuncao, as I said, he's 9-1 at bantamweight, 1-1 against the current champion. A win could put him on the cusp of a title shot, put him into maybe a title eliminator bout. A loss takes him out of line, absolutely. And the thing is, with Cody Garbrandt going to be looking for a shot at the title, with the winner of Jimmy Rivera and Dominic Cruz probably getting the next shot at the title, Assuncao cannot afford a backstep. In fact, I could see him getting a fight with Cody Garbrandt after this, and the winner of that getting a shot at the title in the future. When you look at their fighting styles, we have polar opposite approaches. Lopez likes to brawl, he's aggressive, he's a little bit wild at times, and he will wrestle when needed. For Raphael Assuncao, he's incredibly crisp, and he's a counter-striker. He maintains a very technically sound defensive front, and his takedown defense is excellent, currently ranking at 80%. Very tough to take off his feet, and hey, he's a BJJ black belt. If you take him down, he's one of these guys that he knows what to do off his back from top position. He's better on top, but certainly can operate off his back. When Assuncao does go offensive, he likes to throw those really thudding, heavy kicks, hard, low kicks, and that can greatly diminish a fighter's just general base and their ability to move. Lopez, looking at the stats, he has 8 opening round finishes compared to just a trio of decisions where he went 2-1 after going outside of the first round. And against Hani Yahya, who's one of the best grapplers in the business today, he gassed hard against Yahya, who's also known for slowing down. But that cost Lopez the fight. He gave up 3 takedowns and really struggled in that fight. Eventually, he was submitted. Now, against Mitch Gagnon, on the flip side of things, he got dropped early in that fight, fell behind early, but he rallied. The Canadian slowed a little bit. We saw Lopez get his wrestling going. He landed 5 takedowns to ultimately overcome and win a decision in that fight. So 2 different scenarios: a slow start, a good start, and a bad finish. A bad start and a good finish. For Assuncao, he tends to maintain a consistent attack over an entire 3-round or 5-round fight, depending on what he's looking at. He never opens up too much. He maintains his cardio very effectively, and that's a great approach. At the same time, it can make it difficult for him to win close fights. Against TJ, he could have easily lost both those fights. He won a split decision in the first one. The second one, he lost more definitively, losing the striking battle 52-39. In a win over Aljamain Sterling, he lost the striking battle 44-43. Against Sterling, he lost the striking battle 52-39. He was getting outworked. Moraes, same thing, very close. A lot of people thought Marlon Moraes, including myself, who picked Moraes, thought he won that fight. He won both, but they were very close. That leaves the door open for Lopez. Can he outwork him over 3 rounds? Could he just simply brawl his way to a decision victory by pushing forward, landing strikes, and keeping Assuncao on his back foot? It could be tough, though, without takedowns. If he can't take Assuncao down, that takes away one of his weapons. That wild, aggressive style, it could also walk him right into counter strikes from Assuncao, and as soon as those leg kicks starts landing, it could be all downhill. Ultimately, unless Lopez finds a way to crack his defense and hurt him, he's going to struggle to score, again, especially without his wrestling being a factor. Assuncao needs to avoid getting outworked, as I previously mentioned. He has to offer enough offense to stay ahead, to look like the aggressor at times, and then mix that in with his sound defense. He will probably find more success in rounds 2 and 3 as Lopez starts to slow down a little bit and the reality starts to set in. And my prediction is Raphael Assuncao to defeat Matthew Lopez by decision. Fight number 3 in the main card takes place in the UFC's middleweight division as former title challenger Nate the Great Marquardt, 38-18-2, takes on Ultimate Fighter winner Cezar Mutanche Ferreira with a current record of 12 wins and 6 defeats. Now, a pair of fighters with considerable, but ultimately, I don't want to say wasted, but unfulfilled potential. Marquardt did get a title shot against Anderson Silva, ultimately lost. Ferreira won the Ultimate Fighter, but has never really reached the heights that a lot of people expected him to do. Now, Nate comes into this matchup having lost back-to-back bouts to Sam Alvey and Vitor Belfort. Ferreira has lost, coming off a loss to Elias Theodoro. He had won 3 in a row previous to that setback. Nate had picked up a couple victories here and there to get himself back into relevancy. Physically, the Brazilian, 1 inch taller. He'll have a 4-inch reach advantage, and he is the younger fighter by 6 years. Now, there are a number of interesting similarities between both of these individuals. Both are incredibly dangerous BJJ black belts with a good submission acumen to their names. Both are capable strikers. I gave the nod to Nate there, but Ferreira does bring a lot to the table. Both have major chin issues. They have not been knocked out on multiple occasions. In fact, Nate Marquardt has been knocked out 5 times in his career, with 4 of his last 7 losses coming by KO or TKO. And it's actually shocking to consider he fought 2 very heavy hitters in Vitor and Smile and Sam Alvey, and neither one of them knocked him out. When you look at his thing, 9% of his fights have ended in a knockout or TKO loss. So that gives you kind of idea where he's at right now. For Cezar Ferreira, he has lost 4 times by knockout, with 4 of his last 5 defeats coming via that method. He is coming off his first non-KO loss since 2007, which is shocking. That was his second pro fight. He has lost 24% of his fights by, or 24% of his defeats by knockout. So that's worth noting as well. So Nate has a lot more fights. They've lost similar numbers, but Nate's fought a lot more times. So that's interesting to see maybe some indication of whose chin might be a little bit better, but not always. Now, it's also worth noting Ferreira, when he fought Sam Alvey, he got knocked out. When he fought CB Dalloway, he got knocked out in that fight as well. Where Nate Marquardt went the distance with Sam Alvey, he actually knocked out CB Dollaway in impressive fashion. Again, it's MMA math. It doesn't equate to anything, but it's worth noting some of the similarities here. Now, Nate has a massive experience advantage, double-digit finishing numbers as well. Some of the differences here, including 11 wins by knockout and KOing 3 of his last 4 opponents. The other one was a submission victory. Ferreira, much lower totals. 3 wins by knockout, 3 wins by submission, 5 and 2 in decisions, which is worth noting. He has 4-1 in his last 5 fights to go the distance. So he's kind of picked up the ability to survive and protect his chin, and that gets him a better spot to win decisions. You know, both men are exceptionally skilled on the ground, as I previously mentioned. Nate has been submitted twice. So that was much earlier in his career. And he has landed, 3 takedowns in at least 3 straight fights. So he knows how to use his wrestling, but it's not something he's going to go to constantly. For Ferreira, he's never been submitted, but again, smaller sample size. He has used takedown-heavy attacks in recent memories. As I mentioned, winning decisions, protecting his chin. He used his wrestling and his grappling. He used 3 against Olawale Bambuze, 6 against Anthony Smith, and 3 in the Elias Teodoro loss. He didn't do enough in that fight with his ground time. Another fight that I got wrong. So, yeah, both guys can take the fight to the ground. Both guys can keep the fight on the ground. Nate has a 72% takedown defense, though. Cezar Ferreira, 92%. So both are very difficult to take down. And ultimately, as we've seen in the past, grappling skills of both men could cancel each other out because both guys respect and understand how good they are on the mat. And they thought, no, we're going to strike it out in this fight. We're going to figure out on the feet who wins this matchup. As far as their striking is concerned, Ferreira is probably the more diversified striker. I guess say Nate is the more dangerous with his power. And ultimately, I think that's what it comes down to. Nate has more power. He's shown he can stop opponents on the feet with one shot. I think he'll eventually catch Ferreira in the exchanges. His ability to compete on the ground, at least keep Ferreira from going to the mat, will allow him to stand and trade. Nate's chin, again, it's not perfect. It's certainly a concern, but I think we're going to see Marquardt land that shot, and my prediction is Nate Marquardt to defeat Cezar Ferreira by knockout. Oh boy, now we got the heavies. We're headed to the UFC's heavyweight division as the 11th ranked junior baby Albini. That's a mouthful if you say it. 14 wins and 2 losses, fighting out of Brazil, takes on the former UFC heavyweight champion, the 12th ranked Andrei the Pitbull Arlovski, fighting out of Belarus, or at least originating from Belarus. 25 wins, 15 losses, 1 no contest for AA. Now these are 2 fighters in drastically different positions in their careers. Arlovski, as I said, former champion. He has lost 5 consecutive fights, 3 by KO, plus a submission loss in there as well. For Albini, he has won 10 consecutive bouts, including his TKO defeat of Timothy Johnson in his UFC debut. 4 submissions in that span, 4 wins by knockout. So you got one fighter, the former champion, trying to maintain some relevancy. Had a little bit of a run not that long ago, almost got back to a title shot. Now he's trying to figure out what he's going to do. He could very well be in his final fight in the UFC, in his career, whatever. Albini, he's just getting started. He's looking to establish himself, build his name off of Andrei Arlovski, and keep moving forward. Both men are 6'3", 3-inch reach advantage for Arlovski. Albini, though, 12 years younger than Andrei. That's a big gap. So the first question we have to look at, is always the case with Andrei Arlovski, is that chin. He has now suffered 10 losses by some form of knockout. Issues seem to have come screaming back that he was able to avoid not that long ago when he was having some success. And it's just, where's his confidence at? Is his chin diminished again? He's getting up there in age again. We have to take note of this. For Andrei Arlovski, though, in his last fight, he's coming off that tough loss to Marcin Tybura, who's considered a prospect. Prior to that, his defeats were coming against champs and challengers, top-level opposition guys. I'm not saying Tybura is not top-level, but he's not top-level, he's not elite-level, but he's certainly improving. But it shows Arlovski's taking a step back as to who's actually capable of beating him. And then you look at Albini, say, is he ready for this level of opportunity? Is it too much too soon? Timothy Johnson was a considerable step up from who he's fought in the past. I believe his prior 3 opponents before heading into the UFC had a combined record of 22 and 28, below 500, but at least experienced with what? That's 50 bouts. Albini, when you look at his makeup, he's not a traditionally, I don't want to call him soft looking, because of all people, I shouldn't be calling anybody soft, but at the same time, he's got a very interesting, like he's going to grow into his body still, but he's got some exceptionally thick legs, and he throws some very hard leg kicks and body kicks, and I love his stepping knee to the midsection. He can fire that off, his opponents move forward, and that was part of his finishing combination against Timothy Johnson. Again, it's one of those things where you crack a guy in the midsection, suddenly their defensive front changes, their defensive field of vision changes, and they're defending something else, and he knocks him out. He has a nice slip back left hook counter. He'll throw the left hook offensively as well and lead with it. And again, it was a slick combination where he didn't overexert himself. It wasn't one big one-punch knockout. It was just a series of blows that eventually put Johnson down. Very impressive. He did have some issues getting pushed into the cage early in the fight, but he remained exceptionally calm. And I like that out of a young debuting fighter. He remained calm, held his own, got out of the position, eventually went to work. When you look at Andrei Arlovski again, you have to wonder where he is mentally. 5 losses in a row. He had his moments against Tybura. I picked him to upset Marcin Tybura, and he won the second round and was looking very good. But eventually he folded up and faltered in that final round that he had to win, and he lost the fight because of it. Albini's durability is going to be a big key to his success here. He has 11 first-round finishes, which is fantastic, but he's of those, that's a 14 wins. So the question is, what happens if he runs into a stiffer test here, stiffer than Timothy Johnson? What if Andrei survives the opening round, gets it to round 2, gets it to round 3? What's Albini do? I like his calm demeanor again to maybe allow him to carry his cardio deep into fights, but we don't know if that's the case. He can be calm in fights where he's winning or having success, but not when he's being run over. Arlovski will want to drag this fight deep to see if Albini gasses, but again, does Andrei Arlovski have the gas tank to do that? Not lately. The durability is certainly not there either. The ground game is a possible avenue for victory for Albini. We saw Pereira have a lot of success putting Andrei on the mat. If Albini can score takedowns, ground out the fight there, Andrei could lose a fight on that weakness as well. Even though he's Sambo and he's fantastic, it just seems like it's something that he can be, somebody can capitalize on. Either way, I think Albini's going to beat Arlovski to the punch on regular occasions. He will be able to absorb some of Andrei's big shots. Andrei will not be able to take what he has to offer. And my prediction is Junior Albini to defeat Andrei Arlovski by knockout. Moving now to the co-main event of the evening, we are in the UFC's welterweight division as Matt the Immortal Brown will make his final walk to the UFC's octagon as he sets to retire. He comes with a record of 22 wins and 16 losses. He takes on Diego and would appear he's going by the nickname Lionheart Sanchez with a current record of 29 wins and 10 defeats. Now, this is just like the opening fight of the night, not one of those matchups between two long-serving UFC veterans who we've never seen fight before. Where you thought at some point they'd cross paths, and it took to the end of Matt Brown's career before we got there. Yes, as I said, retirement fight for Matt Brown. The Immortal One is walking away. He's been through some wars. He had a nice rejuvenation here of late, but he's kind of hit a point where it looks like it's done. He has lost 3 consecutive bouts and 5 of his last 6, but you look at the level of competition he's faced during that span. 2 former champions, 2 former title challengers. That's pretty damn impressive. For Diego, who's moving back up to take this fight, coming back up to welterweight, his last fight at 170 pounds took place in 2012. It was a loss to Jake Ellenberger in a fight that Diego rallied in, but ultimately didn't do enough early and gave up a decision. Diego is 3-5 over his last 8 matchups, coming off his second knockout loss in his last 3 fights, which is certainly worth noting. Brown, 2 inches taller, he'll have a 3-inch reach advantage. They actually are the same age. Brown said it would be kind of cool if Diego opted to retire too, but Diego, I think, still has a little bit of fight left in him, or at least is crazy. And I hope he comes out with that cross screaming at the cage. That would be hilarious. He's fighting somebody who's immortal. Hence, potentially a vampire or some other, ghoulish demon. Either way, I love Diego. He's just insane. And I remember when we went to the fan expo, my mother-in-law and father-in-law were with me, and my father-in-law was yelling at Diego, "Hey, Diego!" Diego looks over with the biggest grin, waving at us like we were old friends. It's like, "Oh, hey, Diego." Instant fans right there. It's always cool when you can interact with guys. I also remember almost getting stepped on by one of the Nogueira brothers, which was kind of neat. Both Brown and Sanchez are absolute warriors, back to the prediction part. Both have built reputations on their durability and ability to hurt guys and overwhelm people because they keep coming forward like absolute terminators. The wars, though, have been catching up with these two guys. Brown has lost by knockout. Sorry, just got a text message that I've been waiting for. We'll check it in a second. We'll check it now. Yeah, so wars have been catching up to both men. Brown's lost, I said, back-to-back fights by knockout. His body's always been a point of vulnerability. Picked up on that earlier in his career, and fighters have had success targeting the body. But Cerrone cracked him on the chin and put him down. Jake Ellenberger did as well, initially hurting him. So it certainly seems like it's mounting, and that seems like it's going to be a major issue. Similarities in this fight, both fighters like to bring a lot of pressure and do their best work when moving forward. Diego likes to move forward while punching and trying to walk guys down while trying to hurt them. He's had a lot of issues landing at times, and while he has won fights with that pressure, it's not always the best approach, especially against a slick counter striker, and he struggles to close the distance and do enough damage ultimately, and takes damage in the process. For Matt Brown, he likes to press forward, cut off that cage, keep his hands tight, and not deploy any offense until he gets in range. And then he lets go, and that clinch work that he can do, landing those short elbows, controlling his opponent's head, landing knees, it can be overwhelming and just too much to bear for a lot of fighters, especially when he's having success. That's when he started putting guys down. At range, Diego Sanchez, if he was a game planner, had an approach that was consistent, and I thought he should target that body, look for kicks at range, but again, he needs to find a way to stop that forward pressure from Brown. If you can blast a kick, that's huge, but I ultimately question whether he'll do that or not, if he won't just come forward looking to walk him down and punch him. Both fighters can operate on the mat. They are submission-capable fighters. Brown more vulnerable to submissions. Diego hasn't submitted anybody in a long time, though, and I absolutely don't expect to see much groundwork unless there's a knockdown here. Diego did find success with his takedowns at lightweight, but I think he'll have that option here simply because Brown's too big and it's difficult to take down. Diego's one of those guys who's caught in the middle. He'd be fantastic in like 160 or 165 pound division. He's a little bit too big for I think the cut for him to get to welterweight lightweight is a little bit too draining, and he's a little bit too small for welterweight. Ultimately, though, in this fight, Brown's clinch game and size will be the difference. His pressure and ability to move forward is going to outwork and overwhelm Diego Sanchez, and take advantage of Diego's willingness to exchange is going to be the big deal here. I don't trust Diego's chin. He hasn't finished anyone since 2008, so unless he hurts Brown, he's going to struggle to outwork him. And I think that's what it comes down to. I think we're going to see Diego's chin get cracked again. And I think Brown's going to go out on a high note, even though we've seen some guys recently lose their retirement fights in unfortunate fashion. My prediction is Matt Brown to defeat Diego Sanchez by TKO. Finally, we move to the main event of the evening. It's in the UFC's lightweight division, and this should be a crackerjack of a fight as the number 8th ranked Dustin the Diamond Poirier, 21 wins, 5 losses, and no draws, 1 no contest as well, takes on the former champion Anthony Showtime Pettis, currently holding a record of 20 wins and 6 defeats. Now, we have a huge fight for both men, but for drastically different reasons. I've said that a couple times in the show. Poirier is trying to climb into the title conversation. He was close until Michael Johnson took him out. He nearly defeated Eddie Alvarez, the former champion, his last fight before it was overturned to a no contest, or at least deemed a no contest due to illegal blows. So he is so close, and a win over Anthony Pettis certainly gets him there. He only has 1 loss in his last 7 fights since moving to lightweight. For Anthony Pettis, he's trying to get back to that championship level. He's coming off a win over Jim Miller in his return to 155 pounds. He had lost 4 of his prior 5 fights, which included an interim title fight against the now featherweight champion Max Holloway. Pettis is 1 inch taller. They have the same reach. Poirier is 2 years younger. Both men took recent wins over Jim Miller, with noting, as I just said, both by decision, both look good in doing so. Jim Miller's a tough SOB. I like watching Jim Miller fight one way or another, and he's just a good guy and a hard fighter. I wish he'd had an opportunity to fight for the title at some point in his career. It just doesn't seem like it's going to happen. I digress. Back to the predictions. Statistically, Dustin Poirier, massive edge, 5.14 strikes landed per minute compared to almost 2.2 more than Anthony Pettis. And he gets hit 0.7 more, but again, if you do the numbers, that favors Dustin Poirier, especially over a 5-round fight. He has a lot of pop in his hands, the Diamond does. He gets good extension on his punches, long strikes, keeps a decent pace when attacking. He mixes in hard kicks as well and can do a lot of damage. His chin is a bit of a question mark. He did struggle with the speed of Michael Johnson and the rapidness of Johnson's offense. And he will overextend at times to try and create offense. He needs to make sure he fights within his reach, within himself, and to put up the best front possible. For Anthony Pettis, lots of kicks, excellent leg dexterity, single strikes though at times. He needs to do damage. He can be impactful with his offense, but he's not the type of guy who's going to put up so much offense that the judges just have to award him a decision. He has to do some damage, do something significant throughout the fight. He has 2-4 in his last 6 decisions, including the last fight, which was a victory, a split decision victory over Jeremy Stevens and his other win in that span. Again, I don't feel his style translates that well over longer fights. He tends to be a bit of a front runner overall, and for a guy who's a champion, who was a former champion, he's 4-5 in decisions. That's not great. Pettis, I think he has issues in gritty fights. He needs time to attack, time to set up. You go back to Gilbert Melendez, he kind of set the pace a little bit and had a lot of success in the opening round against Pettis before Pettis caught him and submitted him. Raphael dos Anjos beat him up for 5 rounds, took away his title. Eddie Alvarez, in a fight that I correctly predicted, outworked him over 3 rounds, and we saw Max Holloway blitz him and put him down as well eventually. Pettis showed his grappling chops in a submission victory over Alex Oliveira. It was a back-and-forth bout, very impressive. I'm not a huge Anthony Pettis fan, but my hat was off to him in that bout. I had Oliveira to win that fight. But he can be taken down. He can work off his back. He can do damage. He can pick up submissions, but it's not a winning position if you can keep him down. Poirier is a very good grappler, and we could see Dustin opt to make that decision. Dustin can be finished in this fight. He absolutely could be. Pettis has the tools. But I think he's hungrier. I think he's going to be the more aggressive fighter. I think he will engage and walk down Anthony Pettis, and he will land those strikes, stay right in his face, not allow Anthony to set up his offense. Pettis, as I said, has the tools to finish him, but he's going to struggle to keep up with him. If he can't land something significant early, we're going to see Dustin keep pouring it on. Poirier gets on the inside. I think he's going to box the kicker. The Taekwondo background for Anthony Pettis, we're going to see Poirier work in boxing range, take away those kicks. He's going to force Pettis to work off his back foot, and this is going to prevent him from setting up those kicks, setting up that offense with much effectiveness or consistency. Poirier needs to get in that close range. He needs to avoid taking damage when he gets there, or on his way to there, but once he gets there, it's his world. The cardio edge, I think, lies with Dustin. The aggressiveness, the pace, all those things favor Dustin Poirier. I think he's going to hurt Pettis. I think he's going to eventually put him down, similar to what we saw with Max Holloway. And my prediction is Dustin Poirier to defeat Anthony Pettis by knockout. So those are my 6 main card predictions for UFC Fight Night 120. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to watch this card live because I intend to be competing in an indoor baseball tournament. Should be a lot of fun. Can't wait. But I'll be following along as much as I can. All of my preliminary predictions available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. Because of the short order of the week, I will probably have to do some very stunted predictions, but I'll still put the research in. Again, I went 4-7 the last show. A lot of people got burned. There were so many upsets. So many upsets. That's the nature of the business. You shake it off and you go, that happened, move on. You can probably tell I got a little pep in my step today. I kind of feel good today. So either way, I'm looking forward to this card. It's a heck of a fantastic free card. Again, we got a lot of fighting all the way to the end of the year. They just released the 2018 schedule. There's a lot of fighting to start 2018, so I'm going to be a busy, busy boy if I opt to continue in 2018. You never know. 2017 could be my final year. I have certainly put some thought into it. Either way, thank you as always for tuning in. I greatly appreciate everyone's support and willingness to partake. A lot of likes in the last video, which was greatly appreciated. It's always nice to see that. A lot of comments. And congratulations, George St. Pierre, again. That's fantastic. Very excited about that. I know he tunes in every show. Absolutely. Either way, thank you for tuning in, guys. Take care. Hi.